Gary Numan, I'm going to read you some names, and you tell me. I'll just go through the whole list, and you tell me what this means to you. Moloko, Information Society, Fear Factory, Hole, Foo Fighters, Marilyn Manson, Dubstar, Magnetic Fields, Nine Inch Nails, Saint Etienne, EMF, Rentals, and Pop Elite itself.
I think they've all done my songs.
Yes, they have. And none of those bands are like the others. None of them.
No.
So, as you sit here in 2014, take me back to when you were a kid and you were first writing material. Did you ever think in 30 years from now, I'm going to have this, like, almost like a Tom Jones list of, because, you know what I mean? But the bottom line is you've influenced more people than I think even you kind of understand. Because Moloko sounds nothing like Nine Inch Nails. And Nine Inch Nails sounds nothing like Pop Elite itself, even though I can see those guys on tour together. So take me back, sitting in your bedroom or your shed.
Do you know when you first start doing something like, well, for me anyway, I was always aware of other people that were better, always have been. So my whole life, my whole career has been spent trying to be as good as the people I admire and never being. My first band that I loved when I first got a contract, was a band called Ultravox. I was never as good as Ultravox.
Are you talking the your version or the John Fox?
No, not that
the
one.
John Fox version.
Yeah,
okay,
I
have to clarify because a lot of people in this country don't even know that there was a different singer.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh God, no, the John Fox one. That was a cool one.
Okay.
No offense to the other one, but I love the John Fox one. And then different bands come along and you say, oh, that's fantastic and that's fantastic, and you want to be as good as it. So I've always had people that I've looked up to and admired, and I've never felt as if I reached those heights. So for me, to find yourself in a position where people think of you as being influential is really cool for me. Because I've never seen myself that way at all. I'm not. I don't have a massive amount of confidence about what I do. I work in my own little bubble, and I do what I do, and I worry that it's not as good as it can be, and I don't really think outside of that. So it's lovely, when you do something and it goes out and people say, oh, that was very influential, and I remember Trent introducing me once when I did a guest spot with Nine Inch Nails, saying that a particular album helped shape his entire direction of Nine Inch Nails in the early days. Well, that's quite a big thing, because one of the best bands in the world, in my opinion. And so there's all these things have gone on, and all these really cool people have covered songs or sampled them and said really lovely things. But I've never got out of that way of thinking that I had when I was young. I still think of myself as just trying to make this song as good as it can be. Not because I think it's going to be anything special, just because I within my own limitations. I've never been able to get out of that.
It's funny because like Ultravox, the two different versions of it, the original John Fox version versus the guy with the singer from Slick. It was in Slick, right? Midge Ure?
Midge Ure, yeah.
Pop singer, suddenly the band became massively more popular, but at the same time it was a different kind of a vibe. And then John Fox went on to do his thing. Who else were you listening to besides Ultravox? What was the other artist at that time that you went?
In those days, I started to listen to Ultravox as I got into electronic music. I made my first album, which should have been a punk rock album, but I found synthesizers and changed it. And I then went out to see if I could find anyone else that was doing it, because I didn't know of anyone else that was doing it. And that's how I found Ultravox and Human League and many of the other people that had actually been doing it for quite some time. So I was a bit of a Johnny-come-lately to it. Which is embarrassing now, because I get a lot of credit for it, but I wasn't the first. I was around there, but I wasn't the first. Ultravox was my third album, and I made one.
You were the first one to get the disconnect right. You were the first one to actually not make it, because Human League was pretty disconnected, but they were still very, very electronic sounding, you know what I mean? You were the one that actually put the soul into the synthesizers?
This is where I think I was lucky, though. You see, I went into a studio as a three-piece punk band, guitar, bass, drums, and I found a synthesizer in that studio, and while I was there, in a very crude and amateurish kind of way, added a layer of electronic music to a conventional lineup. So you had the familiarity of a conventional lineup, but the quirkiness of an electronic element added to it, and I think that's why it crossed the gap between experimental and
Right.
normal in a way. So people could get into it. And I think that's why I became big when they didn't, at that time anyway. Because it was just different enough for people to feel it was a cool thing to be into, but familiar enough that it was still recognisable music to them. And I just, by accident, got the right balance, I think.
Have you met Dave Grohl?
Yeah.
Because he's
Yeah.
obviously been. Did you meet him before he started covering Down in the Park?
No, afterwards. I went up and said thank you to him. He was at an awards thing somewhere.
And did he recognize you?
Yeah.
Did he go like,
Yeah.
do I owe you anything? How, I got to ask you this. I had a chat with the guys in Wire once, and they told me that had it not been for REM covering one of their songs they put on one of their albums, they would have been never able to continue on. Obviously, you've been doing things forever, but how are the Foo Fighters royalty checks coming in and all that? Is it kind of an added bonus? Did you buy the leather version of the car with the leather interior as opposed to the cloth interior? Because it's got to be, kind of interesting watching these checks roll. You go, well, what's this one for?
It is interesting, yeah. It creates a number of different trickles, yeah, and the trickles combine.
Right.
Okay.
Are they broken down? Where it goes, oh, Dave Grohl, thanks, Dave.
Yeah, no, it does.
I'll put the leather in this car.
Yeah, these statements come in, and they're like 400 and 500 pages long. I don't really wade through them that often, but on occasion, I've seen, there'd be a bigger number as you look down it, and Foo Fighters was one, Basement Jaxx,
Right.
the Sugar Babes, a British girl singer band. They took an old song and reworked it, and that was #1 in Britain for quite some time. And that
Sugar Babes, that's not the one that the guy from OMD was working with, was it?
don't know.
Because I know he was working with one of those type of bands, and he'd write the songs.
Atomic Kitten.
That was Atomic Kitten.
Yeah, Andy McCluskey was with it.
Another vagina reference for
Similar, yeah.
all the
similar
all the
thing.
bands that have to name themselves after
Yeah.
vagina. It's very, I don't know why that works. So tell me, now that I know you've been hanging out with Trent for a while now, jumping up on stage and singing songs with him,
Few
and
times.
our boy Elon Rubin from San Diego here, Kid, you've met him, right? The
Yeah.
drummer,
Yeah,
the drummer / multi-instrumentist.
just a.
We've known him since he was like 12 playing in bands here.
Really?
It's kind of scary because now when he does these massive tours and stuff, we're like, yeah, we kind of knew that was going to happen.
He's a phenomenon.
He is.
Ilan.
He is a phenomenon. It's like, and he does his own, kind of like, does his own records in his garage and stuff. Can never get them out because he's always touring with somebody that's absolutely more massive than he is.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Now that all these artists, as I mentioned before, when you were sitting there as a kid doing your thing, and Ultravox did what they did, have you run into the John Foxes of the world since then? And is there something that you could actually explain to them what the difference was? Because for all of us, it was just, we didn't view it as electronic. We just viewed it as something that was radically different. But you were really the first guy that came along. You started not just the electronic thing in a way, because I know that's a vague term, because Tonto's Expanding Headband was there, Robert Margolis thing. There was a ton of Kraftwerk was there forever. But you're really the first guy that put something in there that kids could identify with much more so than John Fox. John Fox was kind of like this prim and proper, or whatever it was. But you were like, as you said, the punk. Was there something about, you'd written these songs before and just turning the switch on with the synthesizer actually made it different? Because it seemed like they wrote everything on synthesizer.
Yeah. Well, the song that actually made me was called After Electric over there, and that was written. That was the second album, so by then I already made a decision. The synthesizer, electronic music was going to be my thing. But I was still writing everything on piano. I don't know. I used to see it as I used to liken it to a machine, an engine, where all the pieces have to be working together, synchronous. The way you look, what you say, what the lyrics, the covers, the music itself, the way you are on stage, all of these things have to work together. And I didn't think, and again, no disrespect to Ultravox because I was a massive fan, but I didn't think they did. Like they had a TV opportunity shortly before I did, and I remember John Fox, who I know really well now, and I don't not criticism at all, but he had singing a song called Hiroshima Mon Amour. But he had a Hawaiian shirt on. That's not working for me, and I think that was the difference. I saw it as an entire thing, you know, and every piece had to be right, as I judged it anyway, and I think I just, in that moment, I just got it right, you know, but how much of that was down to talent and how much of that was down to luck, you know, more luck probably than talent.
All right, and to wrap this up, Ricky Gervais, do you know him at all?
I met him. I know of him.
I think he's based his whole career on you. You have a very similar sense of humor. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Really?
You do.
Oh,
and
I love
and
him.
he was a singer in a band that was very ultra-voxian
Yeah.
for a while there.
He's doing it again now, you know.
He is?
Yeah, he's doing some gigs soon. He's doing one in London, one in Oxford. I'll follow him on Twitter because he makes me laugh.
Oh, he's the funniest guy on the planet. He really is. But I just thought that you two in a room would be absolutely hilarious. You should do some sort of a podcast, both of you.
Yeah.
And I don't know, where's he living now? Is he living in LA still, or?
God, wherever he wants, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Got more money than
But I would
God.
love to host a podcast with you and Gervais.
I think he's in
because-
Los Angeles today.
Well, why don't we tweet at him, tell him to get his ass down to the show.
Yeah, okay.
Do you realize how much you're like him? Or I should say he's like you, because, you know, obviously...
No, really? I never
He is.
never
It's-
noticed.
your sense of humor is just... I was watching an interview where you're talking about, like, how the nerdly guy's going to go, oh, that envelope filter, and you were like, oh, it took me ages to find that, you know. You know what I mean? That's where I got it from. After watching you do that interview, it's very funny.
Oh, just blagging my way through stuff. That was it.
Yeah. Explain the word blag to the Americans.
Oh, bluff.
Bluffed your way.
Yeah.
It was basically like, oh yeah, it sounds amazing. It does, but did you know it was going to sound amazing?
No,
when you did?
you know, people used to ask me questions about when I first got somewhere, and I'd be doing interviews with tech magazines because I was meant to be this electronic genius, and I didn't have a clue about any of it because I didn't have any money. I couldn't buy them, so
Right.
I would rent one for 2 days. So I'd have it for hours, and there was just this array of dials and switches, and I would just until it's made a good noise.
Right.
And then people say, "Well, how'd you get that?" To invent something.
Back then, you would have to take a picture of it.
Make up this really, try to sound as if you knew what you were doing.
And this was all pre-MIDI too,
Oh yeah, long before that.
which makes it a lot more easier.
Very manual. You know, there was a thing called emphasis. I remember contour, envelope, and all
Right.
ADSR, all that stuff.
Thanks
I
to-
learned it
Thanks
eventually.
to Robert Moog for all that,
Yeah.
putting the techie into it. Gary Numan, thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure.
It is a pleasure to see you, and we're glad you're opening the show or the tour tonight in San Diego. We'll go tweet Gervais and find out if he'll. You put him on the list?
Yeah, if he's coming.
We'll just say you put him on the list anyway. We'll force him into it.
91X.